Well, welcome to another session. Today I am going to talk about cheating, but my intention in what I believe will be a final session would be to share some rather painful truths, but also provide some recommendations, especially for women, on how to deal with cheating, but also to provide some information for men so that we can understand how best, I guess, to confront and to deal with the inevitable and how to manage that whole process. I found that one of the best ways to understand a topic, an idea, was to use an analogy or something that could explain the concept in a much more simple way. And I thought perhaps the best way to understand the whole concept of cheating from a man's perspective is to begin with the concept of cars. And so what I'd like to do is draw together sex, women, and cars. I stated previously that men do not want sex. We need sex. And that sex is something that, from a man's perspective, is very, very important. It's also a physical activity. I use the analogy of urination, and I said for most men, ejaculation, or the process of going for sex, which is to ejaculate, is synonymous with urination. Ejaculation is like urination from a man's perspective. When we have sex, we are not emotionally invested. We're not even emotionally vested. It can be a purely physical exercise. And I thought perhaps the best way to understand this would be to imagine someone who has a brand new car. If you've ever owned a brand new car, you know the feeling, the smell, how the engine sounds, the upholstery, how the stereo, optimizes the different sounds, trying to balance the internal sound with the external noise. You get the feeling of something that is special when you buy a brand new car. Women are like brand new cars when we start dating. The younger you are, in many ways, the newer the car is. And most women, if you are virgins, you're like a brand new car. You've never been driven before. If you're still young and you've had sexual partners, you're just as good as a brand new car. When a man has a car, he drives the car regularly, and at some point, the new smell starts to wane. It's not performing like it used to. The tires need to be changed. The suspension doesn't function like it used to. The performance is not the same as it was on day one. 10 years down the line, there's always that need in a man to try a new car. Sometimes we do not want to upgrade the car we have because we like the car. We just want to test drive another car. And we might test drive that car for one day. Sometimes it might involve going to the tracks, paying for an Aston Martin, paying for a Ferrari, paying for a supercar. That supercar represents a young woman, typically, because when men choose to go beyond the boundaries of their relationship, they want something that they believe is lacking in their relationship. Most of the time, it's usually better looking, younger, fit, attractive women. And they are the new cars. They can go from 0 to 60, who knows, in 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 10 seconds. The thrill, the excitement of driving a supercar allows the man to, I guess, revisit his youth, revisit his natural instinct of being able to spread his seed as far and as wide as he can. So, one simple way to understand this whole concept of cheating is to think about it from the perspective that every now and then, even though we love the car we have and we are not looking to upgrade the car, we want to drive another car for 1 hour, for 2 hours, for a day, and then we return back to the car we believe is reliable, the car we know we've emotionally invested our both time, life, memories in, and that's how we see women outside of what is a union with someone else. So for women, think about the whole cheating thing from the perspective of cars. Unfortunately, every now and then there's an urge for the man to test drive another car. Likewise, there is also an urge or a need or a longing for a woman to go out and test drive another car. This is not a double standard. Women also have needs, they have desires, and every now and then both parties get bored in a relationship. And a woman might feel that the car she once had, the man who was exciting, passionate, enthusiastic, fit, sexy, has let himself go, and every now and then she would like to have a younger, fitter man who has better performance, both on the road and in the sack. That's just the reality. Now, this brings me to a question. The question is a simple one. Can you share your man with another woman? A very hard question to answer, but a question every woman should have at the back of their mind, nonetheless. And the reason I said this is simply because I believe everyone has to choose his or her own poison. Everyone, and I should say that again, everyone needs and will have to choose his or her own poison. Now, this simply means that the world is not all sunshine and rainbow. If you are in a relationship, there will be, like my father used to say, fat times and lean times. There'll be good times, there'll be bad times. You will have your moments in the Garden of Gethsemane at some point. For most people, it always has to do with infidelity, disappointment, someone breaking a vow, breaking a promise. And the key question is, can you share your man? And one of the ways you can do that is by choosing your poison. Now, I have been stunned over the years by women who make statements such as, if my boyfriend cheats, I will leave him. If my husband cheats on me, I will leave him. And I keep thinking in my head, that's fine, you get to choose. But here is the question that I've always tried to get myself to think about. It's a statement or a question that comes from economics. Whenever you make a decision, you should always follow that decision with a question. The question is a simple one. The question is, and then what? If my husband cheats, I'm going to leave him. And then what? In my head, when I've heard women make such statements, I keep asking myself the simple question, where are they going to find these angels that they believe awaits them somewhere out there? I've heard women who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s make such statements. I have actually seen women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and some of these women with children from that relationship decide to end their union because of perhaps infidelity in the relationship. And I've always thought to myself, you would rather be alone than be in a relationship and be happy. Because the whole idea that you cannot be happy in that relationship is a farce. It's just that's just a farce. I don't believe it for 1 second. The reason I don't believe it is simply because if that affair had occurred without your knowledge, I'm sure you still would have been happy. But now the affair has happened to your knowledge, you say you cannot be happy, which simply means that it's not necessarily the action, the betrayal of trust, that is the issue, because the action has taken place already. It's how you interpret the betrayal and the actions that is the issue. In many ways, it's like saying only you gets to choose how you interpret life and the events that occur. No one can make you feel or think in a way you do not want to feel and think. You get to choose. By controlling your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your behavior, you can actually change, or you can manage how you react or how you respond to things that happen in your life. Now, this goes without saying that if your natural inclination, from a man's perspective, is to look outside the union you have or to cheat, if you have that urge, if you believe that there is a necessity for you to be with more than one woman, then this confirms what I've said from the start of the series, that there is no benefit to a man to be married in the modern West. And to be quite honest, in any country in the 21st century, because you can get all of the benefits of marriage without being in a union or without being contractually married. Now, there is also no benefit to a man to be in a mono relationship or to be in a civil partnership, to be cohabiting with a woman, because in many ways, if you have the urge to be with multiple partners, that is a sign that you should not be married, that you should be a single, you should remain unmarried, so that you have the freedom to be with as many people as you want to. You have the freedom to come and go as you please. You have the freedom to choose your destiny. You have the freedom to make the mistakes that await you and to bear the costs for such mistakes without inflicting another person with such painful experiences. Now, that said, if you are a woman and your natural inclination is to say that if your partner, your boyfriend, your husband cheats, that you will divorce, leave him, break up, then that also is an indication of your naivety about the reality of modern dating today. And therefore, similarly to the man, I don't really see the benefit to a woman to get married in the 21st century. Because let's be honest, marriage, relationships are dream killers. They will frustrate you. He will frustrate you. He will bring moments of pain, sad moments, but that comes with the union. If you do not want to be exposed to such pain, then remain unmarried and remain single. Now this, in many ways, brings me to something I said in the prior session, where I made reference to one of the reasons why men cheat. And I said, well, in many ways, I gave you 6 reasons. The 6th had to do with the fact that the woman causes the man or is a catalyst that creates an environment whereby he seeks company outside of their union because a need is not being met. For example, if he has to beg for sex, very, very frankly, I think it's unfair for either the man or the woman to beg for sex in a relationship. I will also say this. Of all the relationships that I know, people who are married, people who are in a committed relationship, people who are exclusively dating, people who are either cohabiting, without exception, whenever I have spoken to the men in such relationships, there's a consistent theme. The consistent theme is the moment the union was announced, either they became boyfriend and girlfriend, they moved in together, or they got married. The moment the ink was on the paper, the quality and the quantity of sex declined. The frequency, the intensity declined. The passion, the intimacy declined. In many ways, it goes back to emphasize something I said before, which is that women have a monopoly in sex. When you're dating a man early days, the woman does everything that she can to get the man to accept her and to be exclusive with her. You've heard me say before, ladies, you guys act as gatekeepers to your buddies. You decide who you give your heart, your emotions to. In other words, intimacy and sex. You get to protect that. You're the gatekeepers. You also get to decide and are gatekeepers to your womb. You decide who you reproduce for, or who you give the highest honor of bringing life into the world for. We, on the other hand, as men, we get to decide. We are gatekeepers to the relationship. And this is partly why the relationship only begins when the man says it begins. I've always been fascinated at women who keep dates, anniversaries, the first time we went on a date. And that usually signifies the beginning of the relationship. Or the first time you had sex. Or the first time there was some form of a formal introduction. In the prior session, I went through stages of a relationship. Introduction, conversation and communication. Number 3 was intimacy and sex. Number 4 was the relationship. Number 5 was when the man makes a commitment. Number 6, I believe, was dedication. And number 7 was when he finally moves it into a stage of something formal, marriage, or where you guys are in a formal union. And that simply means that for most men, we can be having sex with you 2 years down the line. To the woman, she thinks it's a relationship. To the man, it's just sex. You're just a really good piece of ass. You're just a nice booty call. You're a great person to be around. You are friends with benefits. But in our mind, you're not the one. Because we haven't given you the keys that says you can come into the relationship. You may have given us the keys that grant us access to your body, and you may have even reproduced for us. And this simply means that most women judge the whole concept of cheating from when they believe the relationship began, introduction, or when sex took place. Whereas from a man's perspective, he may have been seeing more than one person when you met, and he's just maintained, you might call it his rota, but he's kept it more respectful. And therefore, although he has been with you all this while, he has been seeing other people. Now, for most men, I believe most men are often quite specific. And they say, initially, I'm not really looking for a serious relationship. Most women believe they can change a man. So most women go through what I call the makeover process, believing he says he doesn't want a relationship, but let him wait until he's tried what I have, and he will change his mind. Now, 2 years down the line, he refuses to change his mind because he knows what he wants, and he's then accused of cheating. Well, he never cheated. It was still the same status quo. He said it from the start. He didn't have to repeat it. You, the lady, may have been invested emotionally much more than he has been, but it doesn't change the reality that, unfortunately, from his perspective, the relationship was nothing more than something casual. Now, this does not mean I'm condoning cheating, but one of the things I have experienced and I've observed is that it is possible for two people to be unequally yoked sexually. And this simply means, and let me use a man's perspective. I'm a single man, for example. I have a focus on my goals, my dreams, my career. I'm only investing a few minutes every day towards women, 2.5 hours every week at the most. And this simply means I keep a rota of women in case I have a need that needs to be met. And let's just assume I have 5 women on the list. I can have one and I can keep changing every day of the week. I meet a woman who I think is special. She becomes number 6. I see her on Monday. She's not available on Tuesday. Someone else fills in the gap. She's not available on Wednesday. Someone else fills in the gap. I see her Thursday. Someone else fills in the gap on Friday. I see her Saturday. Someone else fills the gap on Sunday. Now, this simply means that every single day of the week, I'm sexually active. But to her, she's only providing that sexual satisfaction or meeting that need twice every week. That's 2 out of 7 days in a week. Simply means, in more ways than one, it's less than 25%. If we continue the relationship and I keep maintaining my sexual diary, a time will come when perhaps I decide I'm ready to settle down. We move in together. But the mistake I may have made was not being honest and open. And this would mean that I want sex every day of the week. She's already conditioned to give me sex twice every week. So automatically we are not equally yoked. We're unequally yoked because my need will never be satisfied from her. The more I ask for more sex, the more she feels frustrated because she needs space to breathe. Now, this applies both ways. It's not just to one person. The point being, communication is such an important part of a relationship. Honest, open communication. Now, this is why I recommended previously that between age 18 for a man and 35, you should be emotionally unavailable. Just focus on your dreams and focus on your goals. When you're ready for a relationship, you need to be very honest about the commitment you're making. This means do not make a commitment that you're not prepared to keep. But until you're ready for that commitment, you need to make it known to the other party what your sexual expectations are, what your sexual needs are, and how those needs are being met. You have to treat people the way you wish you will be treated. And this simply means to be honest and be frank. And let people choose. In many ways, I tend to find that women don't really care so much about cheating in relation to the act. They care more about the trust that has been broken, the betrayal, the lies, the deception, particularly the deception that takes place by a man to meet a need. Now, I have some sympathy for the whole thing about cheating. I've said to many women before, and I say this always, and perhaps I'll provide that as an advice in today's session, which is, there was a time when I was younger, if you were dating someone, you dated in a small community, so everyone knew you. So there was this community expectation. The environment, the community laid some form of what you might call I shouldn't use the word, but I think that the word will suffice. Enforced monogamy on the man and on the woman. And that meant that the community and the expectation that you were not just dating a woman, you were dating a woman who was a daughter of a man who probably your parents knew, or who probably your parents knew of, and there was something about you being let into a family, and therefore there was a social responsibility on the man's part. Now, due to globalization, people have traveled all over the world. We're mixing cultures, we're mixing values, we're mixing sexual and social mores. The standards of dating have declined. We've deregulated the sexual marketplace. Sex today is one of the cheapest commodities. And this simply means that back in the day, in order for someone to be unfaithful or to cheat, he had to find a woman or a man with no standards or low standards. Today, both men and women are sexually active, and people just want that need met. And sadly for women, the advent of social media is not really helping. The advent of things such as Tinder, Bumble, where all you have to do is swipe left and swipe right, have not helped. Now, the point I am trying to make is, if you want to have a successful relationship, you have to take into account the impact social media will have on your relationship. Now, this might be a useful place to talk about the concept of how technology will make relationships harder to maintain and contain in the future. You may have heard of AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality. Now, if cheating is an issue to you, if that's a scourge, a poison you cannot tolerate, you might find it very hard when AR and VR are in full flow. And the reason is simply because it's not the same as watching porn, something that has been pre-recorded or something that is streaming live. With virtual reality and augmented reality, you can put on devices that connect probes to your system, and it would feel like you're in the same place with another woman, but all of that is happening in a virtual world. And this simply means most women and most men have to start reconciling how technology will make relationships redundant. And if you cannot tolerate or accept the brokenness in people, then that is an indication that you should stay unmarried. In any case, my general recommendation to most women is to be open, not to be open to the process or to the possibility that he will cheat, not to be open and to accept that there is nothing that they can do, but to be open to the reality that men are simply an extension of the animal kingdom, and that women, likewise, we are an extension of the animal kingdom. Monogamy is a social and a modern Western construct. In most parts of the world, look through our history, and even look through the animal kingdom, with the exception of one, which is not a mammal, animals are not monogamous. We're normally poly in our affairs. Men, by nature, we want to spread our seeds as far and as wide as we can. Now, this brings me to what I think is the most important part of today's session, which is, how do you minimize the process and the possibility that you will be cheated on? It's a painful experience when it happens. Betrayal of trust, finding out from people who perhaps know you and they've always known, learning about what has happened between someone you care about and you share an intimate relationship with, having your heart broken. How do you minimize the likelihood of cheating? Well, it's very, very simple, in my opinion. Number one, be open in your communication. And let me explain what I mean. In my experience, every time I have been in a relationship, I have made a point of putting my best and honest thoughts on the table. The idea was not to be selfish. The idea was to say, this is how I think, this is my past, this is what I think I haven't studied myself, what I like, what I want. Allowing the person the opportunity to breathe, to criticize that position, to be honest about how they feel about that position. And if there was a disagreement, to allow for room for thoughtful disagreement and to come up with the best idea and the best solutions where there are differences in expectations. The key thing is expectations. Whenever there are differences in expectations, you have to stop, pause, and find a solution that both parties can tolerate. The second way of minimizing being cheated or cheating is the art of negotiation. I have to say this in relationships. Most relationships, most parties in a relationship are very poor when it comes to the art of negotiation. For some reason, people just don't know how to negotiate. Relationships are all about negotiation, but negotiating from a perspective that is not a win-lose situation, a scenario. It's trying to understand how that person feels, their needs, them understanding your needs, trying to come up with a solution that both parties are happy with. Now, let me say this. Women make one of the terrible mistakes of adaptation. Adaptation should not be a lifestyle. Adaptation is something you do seldomly. Similarly, if you have to compromise in the relationship, that is not the right relationship for you. This does not mean that you cannot compromise, but the point I'm making is, if you feel you have to compromise to the point where you're changing who you are, that is the wrong relationship for you, because at some point in the future, the compromise and that adaptation will get to you. Now, the third is meeting each other's needs. For men, we want sex on demand. I'm sorry, there is no easy way to say that. We want quality sex, but we will settle for quantity if we cannot get quality. Now, we need you to stay sexy, we need you to stay interested, and we need you to stay connected with us throughout the union. Now, this simply means that if you take the first three suggestions that I have made, you need to look for ways to eliminate what I call the third voice in your relationship. For example, you're listening to me. I am a third voice. You cannot simply take what I've said or what I share and take it to your relationship and try to practice what I've just been spouting on. These are my tenets, these are my ideas. They might work for me. They sure as hell are not expected to work for you like they work for me. So there's the ideas that I have. It's up to you to critique the ideas. In other words, every day stand guard at the gate into your mind. Your eyes and your ears. Watch what you see, watch what you hear, and most importantly, watch what you implement in your life. Now, one of my favorite teachers, Jim Rohn, says that in the associations you have in your life, every now and then stop and ask yourself the question, what does this relationship and what is this relationship doing to me? What does this person and what do these people have me thinking? What do they have me saying? How do they have me feeling? And is that okay? Because you have to understand that sometimes influences are very, very subtle. There is a saying that a chain of habits are too light to be felt until they become too heavy to be broken. And this simply means behavior becomes habitual, but behaviors are simply a product of what you see, what you hear, which translates to how you feel. How you feel is a product of your thought process. So what you see and what you hear controls how you think controls how you feel controls your actions repeated over time becomes a behavior. Those behaviors become a paradigm in your life, And unfortunately, that controls your destiny. So it's important to stay aware of the third voices in your life. Because in most cases, sometimes men go astray because they start listening or allow themselves to be exposed to third voices, whether through social media. In any case, let me just say this. If you want to have a fruitful relationship, one of the best advice I can give you is both of you in your relationship, if you can, should avoid social media completely. Stay away from social media. Stay away from places where you can have third voices by sight or third voices by hearing. Every day on social media, someone is posting something, some nudity, something tempting, something seductive, something that could be a distraction. All of those are third voices. So minimize the third voice. Now, I hope these recommendations are helpful. Let me end by sharing what I said in yesterday's session. There's a simple formula that works, in my opinion, for minimizing cheating. You want to keep his belly full, you want to keep his balls empty, and you want to keep the environment peaceful. And that simply means what he wants is sex, servanthood, and serenity. If you can satisfy these three things, there's a very high likelihood that he will not cheat. Now, let me leave you with perhaps not a very encouraging thought, but it's a true thought nonetheless. You can do everything I've suggested. You can be a great girl. You can be a great wife. You can be attractive. You can stay fit. You can stay attractive. You can stay athletic. You can have long hairs. You can do everything that he's asked you to do. You can be very desirable in the eyes of other men. You can do all of that, and he still cheats on you. It has nothing to do with you being a bad person or him being a bad person. It's simply because it's just one of those things. It's just life. But remember that you may not be able to control what happens to you, but you can always control how you react and how you respond to what happens. So, to minimize the likelihood of the man cheating on you, be your best self and leave the rest to him. I have said before that there is no amount of beauty that can stop a man from cheating on a woman. Doesn't matter how beautiful you are. The one thing that can stop him from straying is his conscience. Now, there are many ways of working on a man's conscience. I can't go into that in today's session. But if he has a good conscience, his conscience operates like a referee, reminding him about what is right and what is wrong. It's like having two angels on one of either shoulder, one saying, go ahead and do it, and the other says, just hold back, just wait, just wait, just wait. His conscience needs to be activated and has to be alive, because it's in a man's nature to receive as much as he believes he deserves, rightly or wrongly. Now, I hope this has been useful. In any case, I wish you all the best.